So, in light of the recent increase in home burglaries throughout California and especially San Diego, here are a few things that maybe you have not considered that are easy to implement that can absolutely make your home less of a soft target for burglars. So, first, if you live next to an open space, that tends to be one of the MOs for some of these criminal gangs. They come in through an open space, they leave through one. And in fact, I was in an Apple store in Carlsbad a few years ago when a gang of criminals came in, robbed the Apple store, and left through an open space. That's happening now through San Diego, and we are in a vulnerable location. So, one of the things that you can do is install cameras, ideally with motion sensing and lights that will be facing the open space. So if there is somebody coming up to your fence line between, say, the hours of 10 p.m., 5 a.m., there really should never be a person coming up to your fence line regardless, but especially during those sleeping hours, that would be a time where you want the cameras to provide an alarm, lights, and an alert to you, whether you're sleeping or away from the house, that, hey, you might want to look at this. And then you can instantly see the footage that was just recorded that's stored and saved in the cloud that's accessible anywhere you are with a phone, whether you're at home or in Tahiti, as long as you have an internet or cellular connection. And then you can dispatch appropriate help. So you should have cameras, not just in your backyard, facing your house, facing your yard, but facing outside your property. And you also want to have Wi-Fi cameras so you don't have to run cables. Now, if you don't have a strong enough Wi-Fi, you also have the option to use cameras now that have built-in cellular, LTE, or 4G. So they have their own hotspot built in, which means you don't have to have a Wi-Fi signal. They have their own cellular signal that is always broadcasting the footage to the cloud, which is always going to be stored and accessible regardless of what happens to that camera, whether it gets stolen or knocked off, etc. And if you don't have the ability to run power, then these cameras offer the ability to have solar charging as well as batteries. So if it's battery, then you can remove the camera, charge it overnight, one day every 6 to 8 months, and then put it back on. And it's good for another half year or so. If you can get a camera with solar, as long as it has a few hours of direct sunlight each day, it can run indefinitely. And I've had my solar cameras up for 3 years, a little over that, and they've never had to be manually recharged. But if you are putting cameras along the fence, I have a few hidden in trees that have a belt that wraps around the tree with a camera mount. It's designed for that. So it doesn't have any direct sunlight, but it's well hidden. And you want, in some cases, the camera to be very visible. You want it to be a deterrent. In other cases, you want the camera to be in areas where it's not going to be noticed, so the person wouldn't see it and therefore try to duck around underneath it. Next, safes. So if you were a burglar, where would be the most obvious place to look for the smallest items with the highest value? Well, the answer is probably in a locked safe. And where do we tend to keep our safes? Generally in one of two locations, somewhere in the bedroom or somewhere in your office. And with the recent burglaries that have been happening throughout California, even 1,000-pound safes have been proven to be no match for some of these professional gangs. They can open them, they can even take them. So if you have a conventional safe, especially if you have one of these locations, the master bedroom where you have your safe or your office, then instead of using the traditional safe in a traditional location, use the safe as a decoy safe. So put in something of low value. Maybe it's just a place to store some, paraphernalia for shooting practice or something of low value. But that is your decoy safe, because for every minute that a burglar is spending trying to crack a decoy safe, trying to steal a decoy safe, those are minutes that they're not using for your actual valuables. So you want to have a honeypot, you want to draw them away from what is actually valuable. And if you do have valuables, true valuables, which we all do, here are some other maybe more clever ideas than just using a standard safe, or even worse, the safe I'm going to show you in the next slide, which is so vulnerable you can open it with a coat hanger. So in the top left, you have this fake wall HVAC register. They call them a register. It's just like an HVAC vent. We all have these and nobody thinks anything of them. What this is a fake safe that can only be opened through your RFID card because there's no keyhole, there's no combo, there's nothing to give it away that's anything other than just an HVAC vent. So when you tap your RFID card to it, it will instantly open and you can have money, jewelry, even a handgun. So you could have multiple vents of these. You could have one next to your bedroom, in your bedroom that has your gun. You could have one in the hallway which has, your passport, your important deed, documents, anything other that is an original wedding signature that you need to have stored. Safe deposit box are great too outside the house. How often do you really need to access, critical documents on a daily, weekly, or yearly basis? Very rarely. So if you can store them and make it difficult for anyone to access, even yourself, because you're not going to need to access them frequently, then do so. Just balance that with the realization that if there is an emergency where you have to evacuate, you will need to have access to these items, and you don't want to make it so difficult for yourself that it's impossible. So maybe do some rehearsals of, okay, if we're going to evacuate, here are the 5 locations where I need to grab things from. Maybe you delegate that to one of the members of your family. You all have your respective tasks during an evacuation. This is something that you absolutely need to rehearse at least 3 or 4 times before an actual emergency forces you to do it live. Now down here, we have this wall safe that you have professionally installed, or you can do it yourself if you have access to the sheetrock. You have to cut it out. You would install this between the studs, and then it's a flush mount safe. And that is good on its own, but even better is that you can cover it with a piece of artwork, and nobody is going to know that you have something behind that artwork unless somebody already knows. This is where you need to be mindful of who is working in and around your home. We have contractors that come on a weekly basis for the pool, for the garden, maybe for plumbing, for HVAC, maybe for solar, maybe you have somebody who details your car, walks your dog. These are all people who we want to trust, but unfortunately, they all know people who we don't know and cannot trust. And there's a reason why the military always tends to scrutinize those who are applying for a security clearance based on their finances, as well as once you get a security clearance, you're continually subject to credit monitoring, not by your own credit monitoring company, but by the military, by the DoD. And why? Because if you are facing financial difficulties, you're immediately vulnerable to coercion, to extortion, to just exploitation. There was a recent Navy sailor who was arrested for selling secrets in exchange for $15,000. So the point is, we have people that are always around our homes. We don't know what kind of financial hardships they're facing. And these criminal gangs, it's probably not just a coincidence that they're striking at a certain home at a certain time of day and going to a certain location where just last month someone was burglarized. They stole over $100,000 in cash and over $100,000 in jewelry. How do those burglars know that home with those people were going to be gone at those hours? Coincidence? Maybe, but probably not. So the point is, don't show off your wares, don't show off your safes. Use these nondescript measures, and you will have a much heightened level of security. And as I'll talk about at the end, don't broadcast when you're on vacation. And lastly, if you have a smart safe, say in your bedroom, this is a gun safe that you could use obviously for what it's intended for, as well as a taser, less lethal measures, or just valuables. And the advantage of this is that it has that red button. What that does is it allows you to instantly call for emergency help. It requires a monthly subscription service, but they can route emergency dispatch for you. And why would that be useful if you already have a phone? Because many of us sleep with our phone turned off. Many of us turn it on airplane mode. Many of us sleep with a phone in another room, which experts say is good for your sleep, but bad for an emergency when you need absolute milliseconds. When seconds count, you don't have seconds to waste. You need emergency help immediately, and a button like that can only help. Now, the vulnerability with some of these common safes, like Sentry Safe, is that they are so poorly made that if you forget to charge the battery, if you forget your backup key, well, maybe that's a temporary good omen. You don't have to worry because you can crack these with a coat hanger. It's so easy that I made a video on how to do it in less than a minute. So don't rely on these for anything other than a decoy. They're great decoy safes. Next, and I'm almost done. So does your property have locations where nobody should be after dark, such as your second floor balcony, which has been one of the MOs for some of these criminal gangs? They go into the second floor because many of us don't keep our second floor balcony doors locked. So you should never have somebody approaching your house after hours. And as I'll talk about in the next slide, these cameras are smart enough to distinguish between animals and people, and furthermore, within people that you know and strangers. So if you had these cameras, not just on your second floor balcony, but on your perimeter fence line facing outwards, then it could distinguish between animals and people. And you should never have somebody coming up to your fence line during the hours of 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. Really never at all. But you also want to have notifications that someone has approached your house. And with AI, with a company like Eufy, with their cameras, they have Bionic Mind, which can distinguish between pets and people and objects and faces of people that you've already marked as known, family members, friends, or people that are potential strangers and potential criminals. So you at least want to be notified and let you decide whether this is a new contractor that you haven't ever seen yet, but mark them as, okay, they're good, they're cleared, versus someone who shouldn't be at your house at those hours. And it gives you the option to decide this is an emergency and I'm going to route help immediately. And then if you can add smart pathway lights, this adds the zone of detection down to the street level, because you want to have earlier motion tracking. You want to have earlier alerts. You don't want to wait until the person has run by the camera for the cameras to start recording that as an event, because it might be too late. It might only record 2 or 3 seconds after it sensed motion. Therefore, it won't have captured that person. But with motion activated lights, it gives the whole system an extra 5, 10, maybe even 20 seconds to activate and record that motion as an event. So all the cameras will be recording in advance before that person crosses in front of the camera lens. These are also really handy solar lights. They're solar powered. You never have to replace the batteries, and you can control any or all of them from your app. They can also be programmed to randomly turn on and off, or to just turn on every night, or turn on in advance if you have a guest coming over, even though they will have motion sensing. With Alexa Guard, it can listen for sounds like smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, even glass breaking. It's gotten so smart that it can usually distinguish between a glass that is falling off the counter and shattering on the floor versus a window being broken. It'll send notifications to your phone. You can create fake dog barking sounds if it senses motion. You can send smart alerts to your phone if it sensed that there was one of those alarms going on. You can listen in real time, and then you can have it programmed to randomly turn your lights on and off throughout the day and throughout the night. So it looks like somebody's actively home. It works on the Amazon Echo, the Echo Dot, the Echo Plus, and the Echo Show. And Alexa Guard will be replaced soon with Alexa Emergency Assist. So look for that name, Alexa Emergency Assist, pretty soon. And it's going to cost about $6 a month or $60 a year. And then with smart home speakers, such as Sonos, such as Alexa, you can trigger it to randomly play pre-recorded fake conversations throughout the house, trigger the barking sounds if it senses motion or just at random times. The point is, you want it to appear that you are not vacant. You want the home to appear that it's occupied. So it can even randomly play music or the radio. These are all levels of defense that are easy to implement. Now, here's something crazy. I'm not saying anybody's going to want this, but it is available now. And it's the Amazon Astro. They have one for home, they have one for business. And it's basically like a roving patrol that can scan your house for you at preset or random intervals, and then it'll dock itself and recharge. And let's say it senses that there's an alarm using the Alexa AI. It can go investigate at no risk to you or your neighbor or your family. You're not going to have to ask your neighbor, hey, there's an alarm going on in our house. Can you come over and check it out? Because by the time they even get to your house, your whole house is probably going to be on fire. So this can have two-way communication. If you have an elderly relative, like a elderly parent staying at their house, you can use this to check in on them without having to drive over there. It can let you know if there's someone in your house. It can put eyes on virtually because that camera, it has, I believe, two cameras. There's one that telescopes up so you can see if you left the stove on, and it can show you who this person is. And it also has the camera and the LCD screen on the tablet where you can have two-way visual communication. You can have a two-way video chat. And it can also just roam periodically, make sure that the doors are locked by you actually being able to see with the camera when you're on vacation. And if you find that, oh, I forgot to lock the sliding door, then maybe you can ask your housekeeper or someone to just come and lock that. But it's just an added layer of defense that sounds crazy right now, but I have a feeling in the years to come, it's going to sound a lot less crazy. They're already using things like this for remote surveillance, for construction sites, for offices, and it's probably not something you want now, but that technology is available. Now, with smart door locks, this is something a lot more practical. Instead of using the regular key where you give out duplicates and you never know who has a key because you can never tell who's duplicated one, a smart door lock is a much better idea. And furthermore, it allows you to create temporary expiring combos. You never want to give out the master combo to your door. Even if you have used your dog walker, your housekeeper for 10 years, give them their own dedicated code. And better yet, if it's a contractor that is just coming over for a one-time plumbing issue and you're not home, give them a one-time expiring password. And change these pins periodically, these passwords for your housekeeper, for your dog walker. They'll understand. And that is very useful threat deterrence. Furthermore, it has a built-in camera on some of these now. The Eufy, which is my favorite brand, has a camera. So it's impossible to walk around it. You have to see into the camera. You have to be able to type in the code, and whoever is typing in that code is going to be recorded. And furthermore, it has a fingerprint sensor if you want to use that capability. So you don't even need to remember the code. You can just use your finger. And you could give that out to a few of your close-knit housekeepers, your dog walkers. So there's no code for them to even get out. It's only registered to their fingerprint. That would have sounded crazy 10 years ago. It's commonplace nowadays for how often we use our fingerprint. You can go to Whole Foods and buy just with your palm scan. I'm serious. So smart lighting, if you have a series of lights that you don't want to replace all the bulbs, or maybe you can't, but it's all controlled with one switch, then just get a smart switch. If you have an exotic table lamp or a floor lamp where you can't replace the bulb on that, then get a smart plug. And if you have individual bulbs that you just want to replace, then get smart bulbs such as Hue or LifeX. And those can all be controlled with just one verbal command. You can say, Alexa, turn everything off, and all 60 lights in your house will turn off automatically at the sound of your voice. And of course, you can configure them to turn on at a certain time, to turn on at random times, to turn on random rooms at random times. It's all through the app, and it creates the impression that someone is home because lights are turning on for 20 minutes, then turning off upstairs, then turning on in the kitchen, then turning off. You don't want to be a soft target. Why would you want to showcase to the world that, look, nobody's home, no cars in the driveway, Amazon boxes outside the door, no lights, no sounds, no dog. Please don't rob us. But now, if you found this useful, here's the QR code. We have a lot of information on our website that I hope you'll find helpful. And a few more quick tips, if there's still time, this is it. don't broadcast your location when you're on vacation. There's apps like Strava and Ride GPS that cyclists and runners use, and that shows exactly where they worked out based on the GPS of their watch or their phone. And it's very useful for burglars to see, oh, look, the Smiths are cycling in Nevada and their home is in San Diego. They're not going to be home for a few hours at least. Now would be the time. So leave that for when you're back at home. If you're going to cycle on vacation, don't upload your ride till you get back at home. Don't do a live stream while you're on vacation. Don't upload the photos and the videos of your vacation until you're back at home. And these are all the obvious vulnerabilities. So don't let delivery boxes pile up outside. This is where a neighborhood watch program worked exceptionally well. I do it on our street, and I know that I will have a neighbor come pick up my packages when I'm gone. I'll do the same for them. They'll park their car in my driveway a few different days. When I'm gone, I'll do the same for them. And nothing is ever 100% perfect. You are just trying to layer these defenses towards that elusive perfection. And the more you add, the more difficult your home will be to burglarize. Don't be a soft target. Control what's within your control, because most things in life are outside of your control. There's no excuse not to control the few things that are within. I hope you found this helpful. Let me know if you did. Thank you.